Imagine walking into a cafe where everyone suddenly goes quiet. Not because it's peaceful, but because one man just walked in. He's rich, he's loud, and every single person there is afraid of him. Waiters avoid eye contact. Customers hold their breath, because everyone knows one wrong move and he'll explode. But that day, someone new tied on an apron. Someone who didn't know the rules. And that's when everything changed. Fear does not appear suddenly. It grows slowly, quietly, and almost invisibly, especially in places where silence becomes normal. In the cafe, fear did not begin with the rude millionaire's first insult. It began the moment people decided not to respond. Each time he snapped his fingers, raised his voice, or humiliated a waiter, something deeper than discomfort took root. Silence sent a message, not just to him but to everyone watching, that his behavior was acceptable, or at least untouchable. At first, the silence felt practical. Employees told themselves they needed the job. The manager justified it by saying, "He spends a lot of money here." Customers avoided involvement because it wasn't their problem. These excuses seemed harmless, even logical. But over time, this repeated silence transformed the cafe into a space ruled by fear. Not fear of physical harm, but fear of confrontation, fear of consequences, fear of speaking up. When no one speaks against disrespect, disrespect gains confidence. The rude millionaire learned that his actions had no cost. No one corrected him. No one asked him to leave. No one even met his behavior with firm eye contact. Silence trained him to believe that his wealth placed him above basic human decency. Every quiet reaction reinforced his belief that power belonged to him alone. Meanwhile, the staff paid the price. Waiters began adjusting their shifts to avoid him. New employees were warned in whispers. Anxiety became part of the job. Simple mistakes, like a delayed order or a misheard request, felt terrifying because they might trigger his anger. Over time, this fear did not stay limited to one customer. It spread. Employees became less confident, less willing to communicate, and more emotionally exhausted. Silence slowly eroded their sense of self-worth. What makes silence so dangerous is that it feels passive, but it is not. Silence is a response. It communicates tolerance. It tells the aggressor, "You can continue." In the cafe, silence became a shield people hid behind, thinking it protected them. In reality, it empowered the very behavior they feared. The millionaire was not powerful because he was loud. He was powerful because no one interrupted his loudness. Fear also spread socially. When one person stays silent, others follow. Customers saw the staff remain quiet and assumed this behavior was normal or unchangeable. They learned that intervening was unnecessary or risky. Soon, the entire cafe shared an unspoken agreement: endure and move on. This collective silence created an atmosphere where fear felt permanent, as if nothing could ever challenge it. Another consequence of accepted silence is normalization. Over time, people stopped seeing the millionaire's behavior as shocking. It became just how he is. This mindset is especially dangerous because it removes accountability. When rudeness becomes expected, dignity becomes optional. The cafe did not just fear the man, they adapted to him. And adaptation, while useful for survival, often comes at the cost of justice. Silence also isolates victims. Each waiter believed they were alone in their discomfort. Because no one openly objected, individuals assumed their feelings were personal weaknesses rather than shared experiences. This isolation deepened the fear. Speaking up felt like stepping out alone into danger. Silence convinced them that resistance would not be supported. Importantly, the millionaire likely mistook silence for respect. Many people who behave this way confuse fear with admiration. When no one challenges them, they assume they are untouchable, important, or superior. Silence feeds ego. It builds a false sense of dominance that grows stronger with every unchecked action. In this way, silence doesn't just allow fear, it teaches it. The cafe became an example of how environments can be shaped not by the worst behavior present, but by the lack of response to it. Fear did not dominate because the millionaire was powerful. Fear dominated because no one disrupted the pattern. The absence of resistance created a vacuum where intimidation thrived. Silence also weakens moral courage over time. The longer people stay quiet, the harder it becomes to speak. Each missed opportunity to object increases internal doubt. Why now? What if it makes things worse? Fear compounds itself, becoming heavier with each unspoken moment. In the cafe, silence hardened into habit, and habit into culture. This is why fear grows most effectively in quiet rooms. Not because everyone agrees, but because everyone waits. And while they wait, fear settles in, grows roots, and begins to feel immovable. Money has the power to open doors, provide comfort, and offer opportunities. but it does not grant moral authority over other human beings. In the cafe, the rude millionaire believed his wealth placed him above everyone else. His expensive suit, large tips, and frequent visits convinced him that he owned more than just the coffee he paid for. He believed he owned the space, the time, and even the dignity of the people serving him. This belief did not come from truth. It came from a dangerous misunderstanding of what money represents. Authority is often confused with influence. Money can influence situations, but authority comes from responsibility, respect, and character. The millionaire used his wealth as a weapon, assuming it gave him the right to command, insult, and belittle. He treated waiters as if they were beneath him, not because of who they were, but because of what they earned. This false hierarchy reduced human value to bank balances, creating a mindset where those with less money deserved less respect. In many societies, wealth is wrongly associated with superiority. People are taught, sometimes subtly, sometimes openly, that success equals importance. This thinking allows rich individuals to dominate social spaces while others shrink back. In the cafe, staff members hesitated to confront the millionaire because they feared losing their jobs or angering a valuable customer. His money gave him leverage, but leverage is not the same as legitimacy. Yet when no one challenges this distinction, leverage begins to look like authority. The danger of equating money with authority is that it dehumanizes labor. The waiters were not seen as people with emotions, pride, and limits. They were treated as extensions of a service transaction. This mindset ignores the fact that service workers are not servants. They are professionals providing a service in exchange for payment, not submission. When money is mistaken for power over people, respect becomes optional, and dignity becomes negotiable. The millionaire's behavior also revealed insecurity hidden behind wealth. True confidence does not need to dominate others. Those who rely on money to feel powerful often lack inner authority, the kind that comes from self-respect and emotional maturity. By asserting control over waiters, he attempted to validate his own importance. His rudeness was not strength, it was compensation. But unchecked, this compensation turned into routine abuse. Another reason money falsely appears to equal authority is societal silence. Just as fear grows when silence is accepted, false authority grows when it is not questioned. Each time the millionaire was served despite his behavior, his belief strengthened. He assumed compliance meant agreement. In reality, it was survival. Yet survival responses can unintentionally reinforce false power structures. The cafe staff complied not because they respected him, but because they felt trapped by economic necessity. This imbalance highlights a deeper issue. Economic pressure can force people to tolerate disrespect. When jobs are scarce and bills are urgent, dignity is often the first thing sacrificed. The millionaire exploited this vulnerability, knowingly or not. His money shielded him from consequences, allowing him to behave in ways he likely would not dare among equals. This selective arrogance reveals that his authority existed only where resistance was weakest. True authority does not need reminders. It does not announce itself through volume, insults, or intimidation. It is recognized naturally because it is rooted in fairness and empathy. The millionaire's need to assert dominance showed that his authority was artificial. If money truly gave authority, it would not need cruelty to sustain it. The moment someone questioned him, his power would weaken, because it was never real to begin with. The cafe environment mirrored many workplaces and social spaces where wealth distorts power dynamics. When people believe that paying grants control, they forget that every transaction has boundaries. Payment ends where dignity begins. No amount of money can justify humiliation. Authority over another person's labor does not extend to authority over their humanity. When money is allowed to replace character as a measure of worth, society becomes divided not just by wealth, but by respect. Those with money expect obedience, and those without are expected to endure. This imbalance continues until someone challenges it, not by rejecting money, but by redefining its limits. The moment money is exposed as a tool rather than a throne, its false authority begins to crumble. The cafe had unknowingly allowed money to speak louder than values. The millionaire's presence shaped behavior, not because he was right, but because he was rich. And as long as wealth remained unquestioned as a source of authority, respect remained absent, and fear remained justified. Courage is often imagined as something loud, dramatic, and heroic, performed by those in positions of strength or authority. In reality, courage frequently emerges from the most unexpected places. In the cafe, it did not come from the manager with years of experience, the senior waiter who had endured countless insults, or the customers who witnessed the behavior. It came from the newest, least powerful person in the room, the new waitress. This is what makes courage so powerful. It does not require status, seniority, or confidence built over time. It requires clarity. The new waitress had not yet learned the unspoken rules of silence that governed the cafe. She had not been conditioned to accept disrespect as part of the job. Without realizing it, she saw the situation more clearly than everyone else. What others had normalized, she still recognized as wrong. People who have been in an environment for a long time often adapt to survive. They adjust expectations, lower standards, and tolerate behavior they would once have rejected. Over time, this adaptation blurs moral judgment. The staff knew the millionaire was rude, but familiarity had softened their response. The new waitress, however, encountered his behavior without this emotional fatigue. Her reaction was not shaped by fear built over months or years, but by instinct and self-respect. Another reason courage came from her is that she had less to lose psychologically. Those who stay silent often carry the weight of past failures to speak up. They remember previous consequences, real or imagined, and those memories restrain them. The new waitress did not carry that history. Her courage was not the absence of fear. It was the absence of surrender. She had not yet accepted the idea that silence was the only option. Courage also arises when personal values collide with reality. For the waitress, the humiliation crossed a line. While others had learned to endure, she reached a point where self-respect mattered more than comfort. This moment, when dignity outweighs fear, is where courage is born. It does not feel heroic in the moment. It feels necessary. Speaking up was not about changing the cafe, it was about preserving her own sense of worth. Importantly, courage does not always come from those we expect because power can weaken moral urgency. Managers often calculate consequences. Senior staff weigh risks. Bystanders convince themselves it is not their role. The unlikeliest person acts because they are not yet trapped by these calculations. Their response is human before it is strategic. The new waitress did not analyze the room. She responded to disrespect as disrespect. Her courage also exposed the hidden agreement everyone else had made with fear. By standing up, she revealed that silence was a choice, not a rule. This realization can be uncomfortable. It forces others to confront the fact that they could have spoken too. Often, this is why unexpected courage feels disruptive. It challenges the excuses people have built to protect themselves. Another important aspect of her courage is that it was quiet. She did not shout, insult, or threaten. Her strength came from calm honesty. This type of courage is often overlooked because it lacks drama, yet it is the most effective. Loud defiance can escalate conflict. Calm firmness forces reflection. Her words carried weight because they were measured and clear, not emotional or aggressive. Courage from unexpected people also has a ripple effect. When someone with little power speaks up, it redefines what is possible for everyone else. If she could do it, others might too. Her action planted a seed in the cafe, a reminder that fear was not unbeatable. Even if no one else spoke that day, something shifted internally. The room saw that resistance did not automatically lead to disaster. The new waitress did not intend to become a symbol. She simply refused to accept humiliation. Yet that refusal became powerful precisely because it came from someone assumed to be powerless. Her courage challenged the false belief that only those at the top can create change. In truth, courage often begins at the bottom, where injustice is felt most sharply. By coming from the unlikeliest person, courage exposed the illusion of power in the room. It showed that strength is not about position, experience, or wealth. It is about the willingness to stand for one's dignity when silence feels easier. When people imagine standing up to disrespect, they often picture raised voices, sharp words, and emotional confrontation. Anger feels powerful, immediate, and justified. Yet in reality, anger often weakens a message instead of strengthening it. In the cafe, what made the new waitress's response effective was not volume or aggression. It was calm confidence. Her composure carried more authority than any shout ever could. Anger invites resistance. When someone responds emotionally, the other person becomes defensive. The rude millionaire had likely faced anger before and learned how to dismiss it. By mocking it, overpowering it, or punishing it. Anger would have played into his expectations. He thrived on reactions. Calmness, however, disrupted his pattern. It gave him nothing to attack. Calm confidence communicates self-control. It signals that the speaker is not overwhelmed or intimidated. When the waitress spoke steadily, she demonstrated that she was not afraid, even if fear existed internally. This distinction matters. Confidence does not mean the absence of fear. It means refusing to let fear dictate behavior. Her calm tone suggested inner strength, which is often more unsettling to aggressors than visible anger. Another reason calm confidence is powerful is that it shifts the moral balance of a situation. Anger can blur the line between right and wrong, making the conflict appear mutual. Calmness keeps the focus on behavior, not emotion. By speaking respectfully while setting boundaries, the waitress made it clear that the issue was not personal. It was ethical. This clarity removed any excuse for the millionaire to portray himself as the victim. Calm confidence also protects dignity. Anger can feel satisfying in the moment, but it often leaves regret. By staying composed, the waitress preserved her self-respect. She did not lower herself to the level of the insult. Instead, she elevated the conversation. This restraint sent a silent message: I value myself too much to lose control. That message carried weight in a room accustomed to fear-driven silence. In environments ruled by intimidation, calmness becomes an act of defiance. The millionaire expected submission or emotional reaction. He received neither. Her steady presence challenged his assumed dominance. Without anger to overpower or ridicule, he was forced to confront the substance of her words. Calm confidence stripped him of the control he believed he had. There is also a psychological effect at play. Humans instinctively respond to emotional cues. Loud anger raises adrenaline and escalates conflict. Calm speech lowers tension and forces reflection. In the cafe, her tone slowed the moment down. It made people listen. It transformed a potential outburst into a pause where power quietly shifted. Calm confidence is also inclusive. Anger can isolate the speaker, making others uncomfortable or unwilling to support them. Calmness, on the other hand, invites silent agreement. Staff and customers may not have spoken, but they felt the truth in her words. Her approach made it easier for others to internally align with her without fear of chaos. Another strength of calm confidence is that it removes justification for punishment. If she had shouted or insulted him back, consequences could have been framed as discipline. By remaining respectful, she left no professional excuse for retaliation. Her behavior was unimpeachable. This forced the focus back onto the millionaire's conduct, exposing it clearly. Calm confidence also reflects preparation. Even if none existed, it gives the impression of certainty. Her words sounded final, not negotiable. This firmness, delivered without hostility, communicated boundaries rather than threats. Boundaries are harder to challenge than anger because they are grounded in self-definition, not emotion. Ultimately, calm confidence redefines strength. It proves that power does not always roar. Sometimes it speaks quietly and stands its ground. In a cafe long controlled by fear and noise, her calm voice became the strongest presence in the room. Large changes are often imagined as the result of collective action. Many people speaking at once, united and loud. While collective voices are powerful, they are rarely the beginning. Most transformations start with a single voice breaking the silence. In the cafe, nothing changed until one person spoke. Not the strongest, not the most influential, just the first. Before that moment, the room operated under an invisible agreement. Everyone felt the discomfort, yet no one disrupted it. Each individual waited for someone else to act. This shared hesitation created emotional paralysis. Fear felt personal, but it was actually communal. What was missing was not courage in the room, it was permission. And that permission came the moment one voice rose calmly against disrespect. When the new waitress spoke, the atmosphere changed instantly. The noise of cups, the tension in shoulders, the avoidance of eye contact, all paused. Her voice redirected attention. It forced the room to acknowledge what everyone had been ignoring. This is the power of a single voice. It makes the invisible visible. It names what others feel but cannot yet say. One voice shifts a room because it breaks psychological isolation. Until someone speaks, everyone believes they are alone in their discomfort. The moment one person speaks up, others realize their feelings are shared. The waitress's words did not just confront the millionaire, they connected the room. Staff and customers may not have spoken, but internally, they aligned. The silence after her statement was not emptiness, it was recognition. Another reason one voice is so powerful is that it disrupts patterns. The cafe had a routine. The millionaire insults, people endure, life moves on. Patterns feel stable, even when they are harmful. A single voice interrupts this rhythm. It introduces unpredictability. Suddenly, the aggressor cannot rely on past behavior to predict outcomes. This uncertainty weakens perceived power. A single voice also creates accountability. As long as disrespect remains unspoken, it remains abstract. Once named, it becomes concrete. The waitress transformed rude behavior into a public issue rather than a private burden. The millionaire could no longer hide behind the assumption that everyone accepted his actions. His behavior was now exposed, not dramatized, but clearly defined. Importantly, one voice does not need support to have impact. It creates support. Many people believe they must wait until others agree before speaking. In reality, agreement often follows expression. The waitress did not wait for backup. Her courage became the signal that made support possible, even if it remained silent in the moment. One voice also reshapes power dynamics. Power often depends on perception. The millionaire appeared powerful because he was unchallenged. The moment he was challenged, even politely, the illusion cracked. His authority relied on silence, not strength. When one voice spoke, the balance shifted. He was no longer the only one defining the tone of the room. There is also a moral clarity that comes with the first voice. When someone speaks calmly and truthfully, it sets a standard. Others begin to measure behavior against that standard. After the waitress spoke, continuing the abuse would have required deliberate cruelty, not habit. This increased moral pressure on the aggressor, making further disrespect harder to justify. One voice also lingers beyond the moment. Even if nothing else had changed immediately, the memory of her words would remain. Future behavior would be measured against that moment. Employees would remember that silence had once been broken. The room could never fully return to its previous state because possibility had been introduced. The power of one voice lies not in volume, but in timing and truth. It arrives when fear feels normal and reminds everyone that fear is not permanent. In a room full of quiet agreement, one honest voice is enough to realign the atmosphere, challenge false power, and open space for change. Control often disguises itself as power. It raises its voice, demands obedience, and expects submission. Respect, however, moves differently. It does not force, it invites. In the cafe, the rude millionaire believed he was powerful because people complied with him. Orders were rushed, voices were lowered, and discomfort was hidden. But compliance born from fear is not respect, it is survival. True power is revealed not by how many people obey, but by how people respond when they are free to choose. The millionaire's control depended entirely on intimidation. His influence vanished the moment fear stopped working. This exposed a crucial truth: power that relies on control is fragile. It must be constantly reinforced through pressure, money, or threat. The moment someone resists, it weakens. Respect-based power, on the other hand, remains stable because it does not require enforcement. People offer it willingly. Respect acknowledges humanity. Control ignores it. When the waitress spoke calmly, she did not attempt to dominate the millionaire. She set a boundary. Boundaries are expressions of self-respect, not attempts to control others. This distinction matters. Control says, "You must." Respect says, "I deserve." The first demands submission, the second establishes worth. True power creates safety. In environments where respect leads, people are not afraid to make mistakes, speak honestly, or exist as themselves. The cafe had been unsafe, not physically, but emotionally. Fear dictated behavior. When the waitress asserted her dignity, she shifted the source of power from intimidation to mutual respect. Even briefly, the room felt different. Tension eased because honesty replaced fear. Control also isolates. Those who control others stand alone, surrounded by silence rather than connection. The millionaire may have had attention, but he did not have trust. Respect, by contrast, builds relationships. It encourages dialogue and accountability. When someone commands respect through fairness, others listen not because they must, but because they want to. Another sign of true power is restraint. Powerful people do not need to humiliate others to feel important. They do not rely on status symbols to assert dominance. The millionaire's behavior revealed insecurity, not strength. His need to belittle exposed a lack of inner authority. In contrast, the waitress's restraint, her calm tone, her measured words, demonstrated confidence rooted in self-worth. Respect also redistributes power. When respect becomes the standard, no single person dominates the space. Power becomes shared, balanced by mutual recognition. Control concentrates power in one person's hands. Respect spreads it across relationships. In the cafe, the waitress did not take power from the millionaire. She returned power to the room by redefining acceptable behavior. True power withstands challenge. Control collapses under it. The millionaire's authority faltered the moment he was questioned because it was never legitimate. It depended on silence. The waitress's stance, however, did not weaken under scrutiny because it was grounded in fairness. Respect-based power grows stronger when tested because it aligns with shared values. Respect also carries moral weight. It appeals to conscience rather than fear. When the waitress spoke, she did not threaten consequences. She appealed to dignity. This forced the millionaire to confront his behavior internally. Control changes behavior temporarily, respect changes it meaningfully. One relies on pressure, the other on awareness. In the end, the cafe revealed a simple but profound truth. Power is not the ability to dominate a room. It is the ability to stand in it without needing to. Control demands silence. Respect earns it. The cafe did not change because someone shouted the loudest or held the most money. It changed because one person reminded everyone of something they already knew but had forgotten. That dignity is not a privilege granted by wealth, and respect is not optional. In that quiet moment, fear lost its grip, false power was exposed, and real strength took its place. The story of the rude millionaire and the new waitress teaches us that standing up does not always require force. Sometimes it only requires truth spoken calmly. And when truth is spoken, even the most intimidating silence begins to break.